Today I want to show you how to knit combination knitting. You know, I've been using it quite a lot and I love how regular it looks for the ribbing. So I want to share the technique with you, and there's two techniques. One in the round and one if you knit flat. So let's start by the round. So I've set up the sample as if I'm knitting top down or a sleeve. And how you do the ribbing, you do a knit and a purl. The knit, you do it normally, and the purl, you do it the normal way to purl is to go anti-clockwise. For the combination knitting, we want the yarn to be shorter, so we go clockwise and we knit. And the first round is kind of a setup round because you set up the stitches. So you knit normally, then you bring the yarn forward and you put the yarn around clockwise. So you knit and you put it around clockwise. And you see it's less yarn like this than if you did like this, and that's where the trick, that's what the trick is. So I'm going to finish this round and then I will see you for the rest of the pattern. Okay, so I finished the first round, which is, I call it the setup round. So now all the rounds from now on are going to be knitted the same way. So first stitch is a knit, and now you see the leading leg is at the back. So what we're going to do, and this is why it's called combination knitting, we're going to purl through the back loop, and again we go clockwise. We put the yarn clockwise around the needle. So the knitting stitch is the way we're used to. So we knit normally, and that's why it's called combination knitting. And the purl switch, we have to go through the back loop. And you see, this is a short distance, and that's why the stitch looks so much more regular when we use this technique. So I'm going to knit a few rounds so you can see the result, and then we'll move on to knitting flat, combination knitting flat. So as you can see, it gives a very nice regular ribbing. So now I'm going to show you how to knit flat. It's slightly different. So when you knit flat, some yarn. Again, you have a setup row. So we knit, and purl. Again, we purl clockwise. We knit, we purl clockwise, we knit, purl clockwise. That's exactly the same as knitting in a round. Exactly. Okay, purl clockwise, oops. Up, purl clockwise, and then we turn. So, difference now is on the knit stitch, the leading leg is at the back. So it's similar to what we did before, so that we don't twist the stitch, we're going to knit through the back loop. So the knit stitch is through the back loop. And then for the purl stitch, it's going to be same as normal, but we put the yarn clockwise around the needle. So we knit through the back loop, and again purl normally clockwise. So knit through the back loop. So it's slightly different, but the principle is the same, if you see what I mean. Knit through the back loop and purl clockwise. Knit through the back loop and purl clockwise. So we can continue, you will see. Then from now on, all the rows are going to be like the second row. So knit through the back loop and purl clockwise. Knit through the back loop and purl clockwise. So I will knit a few rows and I will show you the result so you can see by yourself, for yourself. So I've knitted a few rows and you can see how regular it looks. It's become my favorite technique now. Look, I will show you again how it looks. It looks so regular. So the reason why we call it combination knitting is because it's a combination of two knitting techniques. So I think most of us, well, in the West, we knit with the leading leg in front. So this is the leading leg, and you can see it's in front of the project. And we knit like this. Here is, you see it better. The leading leg is in front. And that's how we knit. So we knit like this. And that's the Western way of knitting. That's how it's called. And then we purl. We purl like this. Still, the leading leg is at the front of the work. So we purl and we put the yarn anti-clockwise around the needle. That's the Western way, right? So do like this. And then I will show you the Eastern way. And I think it's how people in Russia, Ukraine, Poland tend to knit. That's why it's called Eastern way. My Polish friend recently was told, you knit differently. Maybe your friend taught you in a different way. And I was, first of all, there's no right or wrong way to knit because in the end it's all the same. And I think we knit the way our grandparents or our parents taught us, no? So let me set up the work so I can show you the Eastern way of knitting. So I had to practice a few times to show you the Eastern way of knitting. As you can see, the leading leg is at the back of the work. So the way you knit through the back loop, and in Western knitting, you put your yarn from behind, but in Eastern knitting, the yarn goes on top of the needle and you pull. So the back loop on top and you pull. The back loop, see, I'm not used to it. So the back loop on top and you pull. Through the back loop on top and you pull. So that's the Eastern way of knitting, and they do it, I think they use this technique in Eastern Europe, Russia, and even in, you'd be surprised, in Mexico, a lot of people knit like this. So they use the continental way of holding the yarn, and they knit the Eastern way. It's very confusing for me. And of course, there's no right or wrong. It's just the way you do it. So to purl, you go through the back loop again, and you put the yarn clockwise around your needle. And the leading leg is at the back of the work still. And at the end, the work looks exactly the same. It's just a different way to get to the same result. this, almost finished, and I've knitted a few rows, so let's see if we can see the difference. I think here the needle twisted a little bit maybe when I changed, but otherwise it looks the same. Maybe I knit tighter when I knit Eastern style, but otherwise it really is the same. So I hope this video is useful, and I hope I can share more of the techniques I used in the future. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.